One of Roger Stone's associates, Jerome Corsi, released a statement to Fox News tonight about the end of the Mueller probe. Here it is. I feel vindicated. They offered me a plea deal, which I thought was fraudulent. I did not knowingly and willfully give them information I knew was false. The fact is, I wasn't going to lie to keep myself out of prison. I did nothing wrong, and it is clear I did nothing wrong, or they would have prosecuted me. Of course, he was threatened and pressured to sign a deal that would have sent him to prison. He refused, and in the end, he was never charged at all. What does that tell you about this investigation? That fact right there. A Fox News alert for those of you just joining us tonight. The Mueller report has been delivered. The investigation is over. The report now sits with the Attorney General. There are no indictments for collusion or anything else coming next. Democrats already pivoting, though. Congressman Adam Schiff previously said collusion was a certain thing. He knew it. The evidence was hiding in plain sight, he said. That was a lie. Now he says it doesn't matter anymore. More investigations are coming no matter what.
One of the great many of unanswered questions, and if they're not answered, then we're going to have to answer them. We're going to have to find the truth.
Oh, the truth. 3 investigations, 2 years, not enough. So what is the new plan for the Democratic Party going forward? Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry joins us tonight with that. Hey, Ed.
Tucker, good to see you. Look, this has been a situation where you had Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, you've mentioned them before. They've had visions of collusion, obstruction, maybe even sugar plums dancing in their heads for a couple of years now, and it hasn't been there. They missed a key point, which is follow the facts. And maybe to his credit, we need to see the details of the report. Maybe Robert Mueller actually followed the facts. And this is an important point. You and I were on together in about mid-January. And remember the night that Robert Mueller, to his great credit, came forward and said that BuzzFeed story was wrong, that claimed that President Trump had directed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. That was critical because CNN and others ran with that BuzzFeed report and said, if true, this could lead to impeachment. Robert Mueller was saying it's not true. And secondly, I think it exposed not just, as you play that clip from Adam Schiff and other Democrats who got ahead of the facts, there are an awful lot of people in our business who got way ahead of the facts.
You got to kind of wonder, that's right, and not for the first time. We had a guest a moment ago, Michael Tracy, who pointed out that there was similar support for the idea that there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. I don't want to relitigate it here. And by the way, for the record, I believe that there were, but there weren't. And so you have to wonder, no one was ever really sidelined after that. Will there be reassessments in news organizations after tonight?
I think you know the answer to that, which is it's highly unlikely, even though there should be a lot of questions about all of this. But I think, look, the president and his allies have been out there attacking Robert Mueller, and maybe now they're going to do some soul search and say, okay, that worked for them politically, but if Robert Mueller's report now essentially clears the president, again, if they're going to all of a sudden say, hey, we actually like Bob Mueller. We like this report. Right. He followed the facts. I think all sides here have been jumping ahead of this, Tucker, when in fact maybe everybody should have taken a breath. And you've been urging this for a long time, that there was this hysteria about everything associated with Russia. And were there contacts between Trump officials and Russia? Yes, we've seen that, whether it was Papadopoulos and others. But he ended up spending, what, a week and a few days in jail? Nothing to be trifled with. But his life was essentially destroyed. Carter Page, who had James Comey and all of these other people. When you talk about weapons of mass destruction, what I think about is how many people in the government did we trust that they know that there were weapons of mass destruction? Well, how many people in this FBI and Justice Department did we all think we could trust that if they're going to get a FISA warrant and they're going to surveil an American citizen, boy, they're going to have the facts, Tucker.
So let me ask you this, since you covered this, have you heard anything about pardons, specifically of Roger Stone, who looks like he could literally spend the rest of his life in prison for a process crime that wouldn't have arisen without this investigation, which turned out to be pointless in the first place? Have you heard anybody in the White House talk about the president pardoning Roger Stone?
No. I've heard people outside the White House tell me very clearly that the president has been advised to let this investigation play out before he discusses pardons or does anything. I think based on the conversations I've had, I want to get ahead of it. It's entirely possible that you could see Manafort, Stone, and others pardoned. I'm not saying they will be. I'm saying it's been discussed by some of the president's allies outside the White House. But what it's been made clear to me in my reporting is that, and I think this was wise counsel to the President of the United States, if you start talking about pardons and or actually pardon people before Mueller is finished, it's obviously going to make it look like you're impeding that investigation. And he didn't get ahead of it. By the way, I want to make another important point. How many times did we hear Schiff and others say, we must pass this piece of legislation, the Protect Bob Mueller Act, because President Trump is going to fire him. It will be the second version of the Saturday Night Massacre. None of that happened. Yes, did the president tweet? Did he say it was a witch hunt? Did he get in there and fight back? Yes, he did. But he's entitled to do that. The First Amendment protects us in our business, and it protects the president to be able to speak out. But the bottom line is, Robert Mueller, you didn't need a piece of legislation to quote unquote protect him. He was never fired. Rosenstein was never fired, and now we have the report.
It's kind of an amazing day. Ed Henry, thank you very much. Good to see you. We're joined now by former DOJ official Francey Hakes. Francey, thanks very much for coming on. We just read a statement from Jerome Corsi, who is a conservative writer around Washington, book author, who got, for various and boring reasons, sucked into this investigation. He was threatened with indictment by the Mueller investigation, and he refused to admit whatever crimes they claimed that he was committing. And they never indicted him. So that seems fraudulent to me. That doesn't seem like a straightforward, honest, honorable way to conduct an investigation. If you believe a man is guilty, indict him. And if he's not, don't threaten him. I don't understand what's going on there.
I don't either, Tucker. I can promise you that when I was a prosecutor, if I had the evidence to indict someone, I was going to indict them. If I told them I was going to indict them, I would have indicted them. It makes no sense to me. And you're absolutely right that it does make it look fraudulent. Listen, this whole investigation has been like a sword of Damocles over the presidency and really even over our nation. There's a significant number of people in this country who believe the president is a Russian asset. The irresponsible behavior by politicians, by former intelligence personnel in this investigation shocks the conscience, or it should.
Well, 67% of registered Democrats believe the Russian government changed vote totals in the 2016 election. This country has gone insane. What the damage, I'm not sure we can even calculate it right now, but to the extent we can, how do you estimate the damage to our social fabric, to confidence in our institutions, to the institutions themselves from this investigation?
You know, Tucker, it's actually really sad. I think the worst damage is to our law enforcement institutions, to the Department of Justice and the FBI. I love the Department of Justice. I'm proud of the time that I spent there, and I know there's many men and women there who are dedicated and who do the right thing. But this really begs the question, what is justice? And are there two separate systems of justice in this country, one for the elite and one for everybody else? And it looks like there is two systems of justice, and it is very distressing to me as someone who fought hard alone most of the time with very little resources for women and children and others who had been victimized, to see that the justice system has been so misused. It's disheartening.
It's so third world. And what a powerful and sad statement coming from you, a former DOJ official. Francey Hakes, thank you very much for your perspective, sad as it was. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, as we've been telling you, the Mueller report is finally here. We're tracking every development in Washington and seeking out every piece of information that we can find. One of the first people we turn to always for information is Fox Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge, and she joins us tonight. Catherine?
Well, thank you, Tucker. As you've noted earlier in the show, the report was delivered to the Attorney General here at the Justice Department. And more specifically, Special Counsel Robert Mueller has indicated that he is recommending against further indictments in this case, and that is effectively the end of the Russia prosecution. What also has been happening here at the Justice Department has been a parallel series of investigations run by the Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz, and they've been looking at allegations that the surveillance warrant program with the courts was potentially abused during the 2016 election. Also, the leaking of classified information by senior individuals, including James Comey at the FBI, and also allegations that senior FBI officials took gifts from reporters in violation of the ethics rules. And finally, what I will say is that when we have the benefit of hindsight and additional information, much of it coming from court transcripts now in lawsuits, is that in the fall of 2016, there was this fever pitch about Russia collusion in the media, and it was really billed as an intelligence product. But what I know now from my reporting is that it was not intelligence. It was a fact, seeded information that was opposition research that was given to more than a dozen reporters here in Washington, Tucker.
You really have been, from the very first day, I think, the single most reliable source of information on this investigation. And the picture that you are painting is really troubling. Really is. Catherine Herridge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, for more on what this means, we're joined tonight by Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, thanks very much for coming on tonight. What jumps out at you from all of this?
Well, happy no collusion day, Tucker.
Happy no collusion day. That's a good point.
Days. Yeah, I mean, it's 675 days deep, tens of millions of dollars spent, and a team of people who, in large part, were biased against the president, and they could not produce evidence to even bring charges for indictment against people for the underlying allegation, conspiracy with the Russian Federation. But you've asked the operative question. What do we do now? My expectation is that we have to have a thorough review of how we got here, how we allowed political opposition research to fuel an investigation that was never founded in any fact or reality. And then I think we need to seek apology from the Democrats in Congress who said there was stone cold evidence of collusion, that they had demonstrable proof that these things were happening. And you look at all the work the president's tried to do around the world to end wars, resolve conflicts, and reduce nuclear proliferation. A lot of that work has been hindered by the lies being told in this country that can be traced right back to the DNC and the Clinton campaign.
No, it's such a smart point. I can't believe that we're kind of eliding over, just blowing past the fact that the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign. If the Trump administration were using the Department of Justice to spy on the Kamala Harris for President campaign, that seems to me it would be a very serious breach and a very big news story. Why are we not finding out everything we can about what the Obama DOJ did to the Trump campaign?
It all goes back to the fact that we allow secret courts to operate in the absence of transparency, and that invites an opportunity for corruption, and it allows people to politicize the highest levels of our intelligence community and our investigative community. So here we need to have more transparency within those court systems. We need Senate confirmation of FISA judges, and then ultimately we need to make the opinions published. You know who filed that bill, Tucker? Adam Schiff. But now he won't co-sponsor his own legislation to reform the FISA process because he doesn't want the same rules that apply to President Obama to apply to President Trump. It's a double standard, it's hypocrisy, and it doesn't allow us to move past this moment. The country never wants to have to go through another 22 months like this again, where we're torn apart based on a lie, political dirt, and then we had the blessing of our intelligence community and FISA courts over something that never should have begun.
Well, I didn't think I could learn anything new about the story, but you just taught me something I didn't know, and it's shocking. And why do we have secret courts in the first place? What country is this anyway? Those are great points, Congressman, and I'm grateful that you came on to tell us about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.